There is a reason some people have spent most of their lives feeling different, without ever understanding why. Not broken, not strange, not weak, just different in a way that is difficult to explain. Because from the outside, giftedness rarely looks extraordinary. It does not always create obvious success. It does not always make life easier. Sometimes it creates the opposite. It makes ordinary conversations feel empty. It makes simple experiences feel unexpectedly intense. It makes your own mind feel like a place that never fully becomes quiet. And because nobody teaches you how to recognize this, many gifted people grow up believing that what they carry is a burden. They call it overthinking, sensitivity, restlessness, being too much. But sometimes those things are not signs that something is wrong. They are signs that your mind was built differently from the beginning. And if several of these signs feel familiar, you may finally understand why life has always felt slightly harder to explain than it seems for other people. Number 1. You feel more than you show. Some people experience life lightly. For you, even ordinary moments can leave weight behind. A sentence someone says casually may stay in your mind all night. A slight shift in someone's voice tells you something changed. A room can feel emotionally different before anyone speaks. And often, you notice these things automatically, without trying, without knowing how to ignore them. This is why certain days feel heavier than they should, because your mind does not only receive events, it absorbs atmosphere, it stores emotional detail, it continues processing after others have already moved on. Even beauty affects you differently. Music is not background, it becomes memory. A quiet scene can suddenly make you emotional, for reasons you cannot explain. This depth often confuses people around you, but it is one of the clearest signs of unusual internal sensitivity, not weakness. Sensitivity with depth. Number 2. Your mind never accepts the surface. When someone gives a simple answer, your mind keeps going. Why? What caused that? What is underneath? What is missing here? You've probably done this your entire life. Not because you enjoy making things complicated, but because shallow explanations never feel complete. You do not stop where others stop. You naturally search beneath appearances. This is why certain conversations leave you unsatisfied, because while others feel finished, your mind still sees unfinished layers. And sometimes, this creates silent distance. Because not everyone enjoys depth the way you do. But for you, depth is not optional. It is where your mind naturally lives. Number 3. You often feel alone even around people. This is not always visible. You may function socially very well. You may laugh easily, participate normally, appear calm, but internally, something often feels separate, as if your thoughts continue beyond the room, as if what matters to you remains unspoken, because the moment never reaches that level. Many gifted people do not feel lonely because they lack people. They feel lonely because depth is rarely matched, because what they naturally think about often does not appear in ordinary conversation, and after enough years, they stop expecting that match easily. Number 4. You notice your own flaws more than others ever will. Someone may say your work is excellent. You immediately see what is incomplete, what should have been clearer, what failed to reach the image inside your mind. This happens because your internal standard is unusually active. Your mind evaluates while creating, observes while speaking, corrects while acting, which means satisfaction becomes difficult, not because you are impossible to please, but because you see more detail than most people see. And when detail becomes visible, imperfection becomes louder. Number 5. You learn to reduce yourself without realizing it. At some point, many gifted people learn something quietly. Being fully yourself changes how others respond. If you think too fast, people become uncomfortable. If you speak too directly, people withdraw. If you ask too deeply, the room changes, so you adjust. You become easier, smaller, less immediate. And eventually, this adaptation becomes automatic. You no longer notice how often you hold something back, but internally, part of you knows this is not the full speed of your mind. Number 6. Your brain sees connections before logic catches up. Sometimes, you know something before you can explain why. A pattern appears instantly, an outcome feels obvious, long before others notice it. Two unrelated things suddenly connect inside your mind, with unusual clarity, And when someone asks how you reach that conclusion, the answer is difficult, because your mind often works silently before language arrives. It gathers fragments, small details, loose signals, unfinished pieces. Then suddenly, clarity appears. This can feel like intuition, but often it is rapid pattern recognition happening beneath conscious thought. Number 7. Injustice stays with you longer than it seems to stay with others. Some people witness unfairness and move forward quickly. You often cannot. A cruel interaction stays with you. A dishonest moment repeats in your mind. A small unfairness feels larger than it looks, because something inside reacts immediately when fairness breaks, not only emotionally, almost physically. This is not simply opinion. It is often part of how your mind is built. You do not separate logic or moral tension easily, and because life contains many quiet forms of unfairness, this becomes exhausting in ways few people understand. Number 8. Boredom creates restlessness inside you. For some people, boredom is harmless. For you, it can feel uncomfortable almost immediately. When nothing meaningful engages your mind, your thoughts begin moving on their own. You replay conversations. You imagine possibilities. You question decisions. You build scenarios that may never happen, or drift into mental noise without wanting to, because your mind does not like emptiness. It searches constantly for stimulation, and when none appears outside, it creates movement inside. Number 9. You feel emotions in layers. When something affects you, it rarely affects only one part of you. It arrives slowly and deeply. Thought, memory, meaning, association. A small disappointment may touch something older. A kind gesture may remain inside you for days. A simple moment may suddenly feel larger than expected. And while others recover quickly, you continue processing. Not because you cannot let go, but because your emotional system moves deeper before it releases. Number 10. You still secretly doubt yourself more than people realize. Even after success, even after proof, part of you still feels unfinished, because internally, you always see what remains beyond reach, what could still improve, what has not yet been understood, what is still missing. And because your awareness keeps expanding, arrival rarely feels complete. This is why gifted people often appear capable while privately feeling uncertain, because the more clearly you see possibility, the harder it becomes to feel finished. And perhaps that is why compliments sometimes feel distant, as if they stop at the surface, while your mind keeps looking further. A gifted mind rarely feels gifted from the inside. It often feels complicated, heavy, restless, too aware, too sensitive, too difficult to explain. But perhaps what you once called too much was actually depth. What you called overthinking was unusual mental range. What you called being different was simply a mind that was never designed for the surface. And maybe understanding that is where something inside you finally begins to soften.